Hello and welcome to our latest edition on our review show of the Road of Balls. I'm delighted to be joined by Conor Deegan's former fullback, midfield, stalwart. Maybe Conor would be a good word for you.
Fair enough. Okay. Yep. Stalwart.
And another stalwart we're joined by is Jarlath Budgie. How's things for you?
Great, but don't worry about possessions for me. I'm just one possession only.
Budgie, delighted to get you on. Obviously, the big year for you. You've been playing for 22 years now. Amazing.
Budgie, what age are you? What age are you, Budgie?
Hit the big 4-0 about a month ago.
Oh, fair play to you. Fair play to you.
So it's an amazing achievement. So well done, and it probably speaks volumes for your own training as well. That you're able to play not a high standard of football as well, but because it was mostly Division 1 football.
Most of the way until the last few years when we've dropped down a couple of times. But yeah, Division 1 from 98 pretty much through to the late 2010, 2012, I think it was, when we went down to Division 2 for the first time. And then back up, back down, back up again in the last few years, thank God. So I'll finish it. I'll finish it in Division 1. No, take that what you mean. Because we can't get relegated this year.
But you must have seen some changes in football as well, Budgie, from you started. Obviously, Rostrevor winning championships and not being contenders, all the way through to then being relegated, as you said, winning championships, intermediate championships. The style of football definitely has changed and opposition has changed.
Yeah, the style of football actually helps a player like me, who's a cornerback and was always in the role of, I would always attack from cornerback, even back when I started playing. And nowadays, that's what at that time, people were saying, what are you doing, get up there? Now you're being asked to do that. You know, everybody effectively does that. Everybody in the team, with the exception of a handful of players or specific roles, whether it's a midfielder or a full forward or a full back. You've got 10 players who just have, that's what they've been asked to do. And a lot of games is start in their own half, attack, ball's turned over or ball goes dead, run back, up and down. So it helps a player like me as I've got older and I've lost.
And you have numbers around you too, Budgie. I mean, it's a huge plus,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of coverage there, which is still.
You know, it's a different type of, the aerobic fitness is a lot more important now than that, you know, speed, that raw pace and speed that people used to rely on as a full forward, say, for example. You know, because now you've got, even if you're marking somebody with that raw speed, you're not too worried because you know you can go for that. You can go for the quick tackle because there's covering behind you.
Mm-hmm. And also, Rostrevor's pitch dimensions also helped you, Budgie, probably prolong your career.
Absolutely. Did you like playing down the hill or up the hill? Always towards the scoreboard. The old scoreboard.
The old scoreboard. CD,
down the hill there. What?
You have been with down under 20s now a number of years, and you know, you've seen the players' development as well coming through. You're getting a good turnover of players into the down seniors.
Well, yeah, there's at least there's continuity now. There's players that are moving forward, but you know, the likelihood is that a lot of them are going to move forward anyway. You know, I think, you know, I've absolutely of the belief that we have very good talent coming through. I'll stand over that. We have incredibly talented footballers who are committed, want to be involved, want to play. you know, we probably need another little avenue for them. I think we're losing them because it's very hard to bring too many into a county senior setup. You know, you have obviously established players already in place. You have guys that have a little bit more experience. They've done the work. There's more strength and conditioning, which is obviously one of the things that's of paramount importance now. So, you know, there's a real danger of putting all the time and effort in through the academy, through minors, through 20s, and then you get to that age when they're sort of 19, 20, 21, where they're sort of, you know, they're falling almost between the cracks. And we got to be very careful that we don't lose too many of them, you know. Yes, there's a few have come through, but there's still guys out there that we need to monitor and keep an eye on so that we have to maximize. You know, it's not a very nice term, and it's a business term, but you need your return on investment. Your investment is time at this stage, and the effort that people have put in, including the players. So we need to maximize that as best we possibly can. But yeah, there's good kids coming through, and there's guys have definitely made a step forward, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, you can see even through the results and you know the feedback I'm getting from the different leagues and that you know there is young players and young talent, and they're getting first team football now. So maybe with the no promotion relegation, it's helping them getting them minutes on the pitch as well.
Well, yeah, but I mean, possibly. But I mean, realistically, if a lot of young fellas today are like looking at things almost arse about face, they're really looking at a situation where they're saying they want to play for the county. Well, they really got to knuckle down and perform very well for their clubs, and it's from there that things will move forward. Guys are thinking too far ahead and thinking, I want to be, and that's brilliant, and that's where you want to be, of course, if you're looking to push yourself and you're able to do it. But realistically, you're looking for all these young fellas to step up and deliver at club level. And if they're starting to, I don't like using the word star, but if they're performing very, very, very well for their clubs and they're holding down a senior place at a young age, well, that's a good starting point. And then at least you can kick forward. But you're kicking forward from a solid foundation and a good base. You know, you look at the likes of young Ross Carr, did very well against Kilcoo. Ross, when he was with ourselves, he was the player that probably improved the most over that 6-month period. Was absolutely, and has buckets of football in him, you know. And I'm just picking out one person, but you know, there's so many. You have Aaron Devlin, you have the lads out of Leitrim, the Carry Duff fella. There's so many that we have over the last 3 years. We've had 97 players. You know, and that's an awful lot of them we got to keep a hold on. Like, I think out of that 97, I think there's close to 25 have played at some level for the seniors. Now, to what degree and how many matches, but they have played. So, you know, that is a good, I think that's a good representation from that sort of number, you know. Well, I think it is anyway, but it would be nice to win an odd thing too. That would also be quite pleasant to do, albeit it's not the be all and end all. Obviously, they're looking at seniors, but it'd be still nice to get a bit of silverware.
It would. It definitely would. Budgie, whenever you're marking these young fellas now, have you seen the development from whenever you started playing, you know, the difference in strength and conditioning, their lifestyle, even the way that they're training?
Well, first year, this is the first year now. We've only played a few games, obviously. And as you said, they're not, I suppose it's not a proper league, so I'm not sure what managers are doing. So first year against Clondalf and against Maybridge, I didn't know half the team we were playing against. It's the first year. Up until now, you knew what the team was. You knew who you were coming up against, who the forwards were, especially. I didn't have a clue who these boys were. That's the God's honest truth. Who are you marking? I said, I don't know, somebody aiming somebody. Or that's all I could do first games.
Budgie, I'm sorry to tell you, Budgie, you are getting older, my God.
Genuinely. But it reinforced your point there that the last couple of years there has definitely been a big influx of the younger players. In terms of, are they any better, or like, I would say I had marked harder players 20 years ago than I have in the last 5 years. Definitely. Whether that's the change in the game, I'm not so sure, because if you're playing cornerback, you need to play your trade there, and you need to know it. And the corner forwards 20 years ago were definitely different players than what they are now. They mightn't have been, like, again, marking those couple of teams on one point. You're coming up against athletic players, all right. But half the time they're not, they're not looking. It's not one-on-one. They're not getting.
It's not a physical confrontation anymore.
It's not. They're sometimes they're getting the ball and they're running towards the sideline, or they're running out to the midfield, or they're recycling it to the man coming through. This type of thing. It's totally different. So although athleticism and strength might be different, just to some of the games or the way the game's going, I don't think they get to use it. Mm-hmm. That athleticism seems to only be used from, and again, I've seen it in a couple of games where there's the team gets in a run and there's 3, 4, 5 players just coming like a train from midfield, and there's nothing you can do in that, and that's where it really counts. And then the score happens, or the ball goes dead, and they turn around and they're just fit as anything to get back.
What would you, I have a belief that because of the way the football has gone, that from a defensive point of view, it does change how you defend, obviously. But if you started seeing long, high diagonal balls starting to come back in again, that would change the whole dynamic of how you defend.
Oh, it definitely would.
I think there's so much of what we're doing today. It's only a personal opinion. I don't think an awful lot of it doesn't suit a lot of our players. I think if we can move the ball an awful lot quicker and get our forwards engaging with defenders, taking them on one-on-one, being more aggressive on the ball, with the ball. I think that's the sort of player that we are. I know that sounds a bit silly, but I think it's high time try to play a wee bit more rather than.
And there's still boys like that in the leagues. Just
the
likes of Barry O'Hagan, Jerome Johnson. They're still that type of player that we one-on-one. They're still dangerous. In terms of the high ball, like there's Clonduff, Big Arthur was in full forward. There wasn't. I thought they would have rained balls in on him, and they never. I thought that would have suited him down the ground. So he's a great man on the high ball.
Sometimes the stats goes against that. If you're coming at half time, you give the ball away 5 times there, but it doesn't say where you've given the ball away to. Like it could have been, from the half back or half forward coming at a diagonal, as you said, Conor. Might not reach his target, but maybe that's where players are reluctant to hit that.
But if you keep your forwards up, if you can try to keep your forwards up a wee bit more and put a little bit more pressure, I mean, there's now a default where you actually just retreat almost instantly, and you're coming back to a certain part of the pitch, and then you're re-engaging. Whereas if the ball went in a wee bit quicker and a wee bit earlier, it makes the team defending it. They have to think completely differently. They have to work completely differently. If the ball bypasses the half-back line and goes over their heads, they're now turning it and running back towards their own goal. They're not in a comfortable position. Yeah. If they're now going back towards their own goal and the ball is one inside, if a ball is then flipped out, 30 yards out, you probably have a free shot because the boys are retreating. And you just wonder why we're not more dynamic putting the ball in much earlier. I mean, at the other side of it, if Budgie catches the ball in the corner back and all of a sudden these 2 boys stand in front of him, it's a difficult thing to get that ball from that end of the pitch, the full length of the pitch, if everybody's doing their job. I think this thing about everybody dropping back to such a degree, at times it's a real cop-out.
Well, you think there, Conor, if you kick the ball in and the defender wins it, if you've kicked it long, in theory, all your team should be goal side of the ball then.
Yeah.
Or 90% of them will be goal side. It's not like you're getting caught out.
No.
Here's what happens nowadays when that mass attack happens. Those 4 or 5 players on the run, if they lose the ball,
you're in trouble.
The house is down.
Yeah.
Which does happen.
It's just for me personally, I just think I would like it's maybe a bit of a throwback to a certain degree, but I think maybe the use of the ball a wee bit going forward a wee bit more aggressively and a bit quicker with the boot. It doesn't have to be slavish. I'm not talking about that, but I'm just thinking that at the moment it's just such a default. Whereas we go back, we recycle, we build slowly from the back, and then we try to we'll move the ball side to side. We'll try to load up one side of the pitch when the ball goes over there. Then we start attacking from that angle. If that's stopped, it'll recycle and come back around the other side. I mean, it's a bit of a waltz, really, rather than say, right, well, let's hurt the opposition.
Well, we'll touch on it later, but the core Finn, like scoring 7 goals, and I think it could have been 27 goals. That should be the blueprint for every team, really, moving forward.
Yeah, but if you listen to the interview that was done after the game, John, everything that they advocate is about doing the basics well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about movement of the ball at the right time, doing the right thing at the right time. Skill set, left foot, left hand, right hand. They're comfortable on the ball. It's easy for teams to play that sort of football when the players are of that quality. And that comes down to individual responsibility of each player. And I'm sure they can't do it every time. I'm sure they're not training 7 days a week. So the players must buy into that massively. Whether they go down to the pitch on their own, whether they go down to the pitch with another lad and they kick a ball back and forward. It is such a throwback, but when you start hearing it, people are saying they're not reinventing the wheel. What they're talking about is stuff that used to be done, i.e. players that are comfortable coming out with the ball, look up, can dink a ball 30 or 40 yards ahead of them. Man takes it first time, off the shoulder running, kicks it over the bar, or kicks it under the bar in their case. But they kicked 7-17. It wasn't as if they just, it wasn't 7-5 they kicked, it was 7-17. They just, and it was relentless.
It sounds like it's the same as Crossmaglen were, or are, for the past 20 years as well. And anytime you hear about Crossmaglen's ethos, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But then there's Crossmaglen conceded 7 goals, wouldn't play a sweeper apparently the other day. So there's times and place maybe for different styles. Times and place.
Should have packed the defence.
Pack the defence. What do we know?
Look, lads, we'll go through the divisions here. There's still games to be played on Friday night, but for most, that's the first part of the league done before the championship. We'll start off with Division 4, Section A, Cleef. There's big wins all round for Cleef, Dromara, and Section B then with St Paul's, Bright, and Ardglass winning. East Belfast still without where to win, but they scored 2 goals, so hopefully good signs there as well. But Division 4 is very, very competitive, and it seems to be like the top 3 or 4 teams. There's not much between them, Conor.
No, it's great, and out this neck of the woods, you have Cleef. The last day out or against Mitchell's, they kicked 225. It's great score, and Dromara were kicking 415 against Ahadurg. Like Cleef, way back in the day, would have been a force. Obviously, it is. It's been a while, but there's definitely good work going on out there in the club, and there's a definite drive. There's definite drive at this stage that they're pushing forward. Like the beat Dundrum, like not that long ago, Dundrum would have been looking to go to Division 2.
Mm-hmm.
So in fairness, the likes of Cleef, it's East Down Club. It's great. Drum and S are doing well. Dromara, you don't know what's going to come out of Dromara. They went out and destroyed Ahadurg, but then Drum and S chinned them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is. There's no two ways about that. It's competitive. You're going to look at the 4B and East Belfast. I think it's one of the great stories we're going to have this year. That a club was set up by Derek Cross to Connacht fella.
To Connacht man, yeah.
To Connacht man.
Yeah.
And the traction that has got, and I think it's a really feel good story for the GAA in itself. But like Cleef have gone out and have won 2 out of 2, and Drum and S the same. It is tight at the top of that league. Ahadurg are unfortunately they're pulling up the rear, but it's part and parcel of our leagues, and it's great to see all these clubs, no matter what. And it's very easy to sit at the top table and all Division 1s and teams that are looking to win this, win that, and win the other. All these clubs are the lifeblood.
You're talking about teams that are Drum and S and Cleef, and just from our own experience, Conor, when we went down to Division 2 a few years ago, both those teams were in Division 2.
There you go.
So there is capacity for those teams to race through the leagues. And both of them, well, Drum and S beat us in Rostrevor, and Cleef gave us a scare of our lives, I remember, in Cleef. It was a surreal experience that day.
Oh, you went to Cleef, trust me, big guy.
That was a surreal experience. The first time, the only other time we'd been in was for a hurling match years before it, because obviously we don't play them underage. But it was. I remember pulling in, and the next thing there was boys going, "Jeez, my hamstring's not."
Oh, he's getting a wee bit cold, were they?
The mist was coming in from the lock. It was unreal. But
there was a couple of boys didn't want to hit the last three, and I remember that.
Yeah, right.
I'm not mentioning any names, but
I'll name them, man. I'll stand up and name them.
Our Conor didn't fancy it. He was hitting them all year, and then he goes to me.
That big blouse.
This is out of my range. I says, sure, give me it there. Give me it.
you missed it instead of him.
Did not. Budgie, the St. Paul's, as you said, Stevie King's meant to come on tonight. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but I just wanted to ask them about the 4-year plan or 5-year plan that St. Paul's have, but they seem to be making great strides in Division 4 as well. They're racking up big scores whenever they need to, and they had a good win against. I know Conor Harrison wasn't playing for Glasdrummold, but still, big score.
Well, in theory, it's another team. Like St. Paul's could be another Gary Duff or Breda.
Gary Duff, yeah.
In theory, they could be.
Yeah.
Now, whether East Belfast is impacted at all, and I'm not so sure, but there's no reason why they can't be. There's no reason why they can't rise through the leagues like Breda have done. Although Breda have plateaued a wee bit, but Kerry Duff have kept going on up through to Division 1, challenging seniors. Now, we have a player from us, that big Matt Grimley, transferred down from St. Paul's, and that was probably a couple of years ago. That there's no point in staying there. We're not going to do anything. But you can see the results here. That there's definitely potential for that, for teams that got to come on through. Belfast, we do not, as a county, until now. We had carried off players 30 years ago, Conor, when he was rowing in All Ireland. But in the 30 years since then, we had nothing from Belfast as a county. Mm-hmm. There was nothing coming from there. Whether the county as a whole wasn't putting any emphasis into that, whether we're just letting them paddle their own canoe effectively. And concentrate the South Down and the East Down clubs of France for Dramatical Coup and that. But that change, to me, that is the biggest change in Down football, and that's what will take us back up the divisions as a county again. Is that having that strength, because the South Down teams are still strong. The traditional East Down teams are still quite strong. Bransford, Dramatical Coup, Castlewell, they're still relatively strong, and then you have these new clubs coming. And another one just in East Belfast as well, from Belfast. I think it's
I think the
fantastic.
Numbers. It is, no, and you're 100% right, Budge. You look at the probably two biggest clubs in the county are Breda and Kerry Duff, with numbers of members and whatever else. I would have thought they're huge. They are very big. And there's no.
What sort of numbers would the Balls have? I'm not sure. I don't know. What sort of numbers would they have?
I don't think it's anywhere near the lads. By the lads, I mean the other two clubs.
I think they put out a tweet there the other day that there was something like over 50 players looking for 15 jerseys. So, I don't know whether they've got a thirds team, but they've certainly got a seconds team, which is always helpful.
And we're probably doing them an injustice, even talking about it now, and we're not as au fait as we probably should be or could be. In fairness, and I'd put my hands up and say I wouldn't know enough about them to talk in real terms. But there are underage players filtering through as well, coming out of there in the schools as well. The one thing about it all is that they're Gaels, that they're as important and as integral part of what we are as a county as anybody else. And it's probably doing them a slight disservice by not knowing a wee bit more, to be honest. And I don't know enough personally.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just with the junior championship as well. That Division 4, with Cleef not playing St. Paul's and probably Bright, it'll be interesting to see now what way that the junior championship's going to go. Budge, I know we're still 2 weeks away from it, but how important is it? Maybe I'm asking the wrong man here, to get a couple of wins before the championship.
Oh Jesus!
Well, in normal circumstances, you're up. It'll be very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
In these times, there's no doubt managers have been chopping and changing and trying a few things with definitely 1A, if not 2, on the championship match. You know, there's no question about that. There's teams there in Division 4 that could be losing games. If I could have had a different team out in the second game than they had in the first game. I know that's been happening in Division 1 anyway. You know, in Division 2, teams have been totally chopped and changed. So you just not 100%. Can't absolutely focus on results. Conor mentioned there's a team got chinned in their first game by Drummond, but then is hammering teams in the third round.
That's
your
your cousin. You see, he masterminded that. Jamara.
Keith?
Hosky. That's Jamara. Yeah.
So, you know, you're not sure what's happening there. But obviously a win, yes, creates confidence. If you're going in, like for example, we have on 2 defeats, it's just there's a wee bit of downers and doubt there. Yeah, there is. With
August Finn playing Division 3 football, Conor, do you think that's going to make them hot favourites for the junior championship?
Lost out in the final last year to Bright. My cousin Noel was involved in Bright. He's involved in every other one that they've ever lost. So that was the first one he was ever involved. They actually got a win. That was about the 7th attempt.
That's right.
I remind him of that. Thankfully, it was good for them actually. I was there for their annual dinner dance. It was a hell of a night. My dear God. There couldn't have been too much drink left in the Millbrook afterwards. But a great night and a great club. The Finn are doing brilliantly. You know, obviously, again, huge soft spot for them. When I come home from Dublin, I managed Outlast the Finn. And I've said it to you in the past, Sean, without a shadow of doubt, probably the best managerial year I've ever had. I never had as much fun. And I mean this really respect. There was such a lunacy about the place. It was fantastic. They just were eating it up, and everything you asked them to do, they did it. Jared Lenihan is doing tremendous work there, underage. You know, the schools feed into it as well. Players that had gone to Castlewell are now back playing for August the Finn, which has helped them. So I would say that they would have to be gearing it up as a team that really is looking to go a step further than they went last year.
Conor, I'm just going to push you for a winner for the junior championship.
Sure. I'll put all the pressure on the Finn. Why not?
Very good. But who would you see as potential winners?
Drummond S.
Yeah.
Drummond S.
Seems they've got their house in order. Drummond S. on us. You know, they're definitely playing good football as well. Okay, man. Division 3. I suppose probably one of the shocks. Not that Shamrocks beat Savile, but how convincingly they beat Shamrock or Savile, Budgie probably was one of the surprises.
Yeah, like by all accounts, pre-season Savile had big numbers and were training well, and you know all the sounds coming out were good, like a lot of clubs. You know, and maybe again, that's one of those ones you can't be 100% sure of what's happening there, because they had a great win in their first game, and then they drew with Ackles to Finn in their second game, which was bound to have been a massive result for Ackles to Finn. Conor,
huge. I think Savile were playing Downpatrick in Division 1. I think 2 seasons ago, if not 3. I mean, that's I thought that was a huge result for the Finn. And did Savile not score later on to get the draw? I think they kicked a goal. I think they kicked a goal in the last minute or so to get the draw.
Well, we won intermediate. We won the intermediate championship and got promoted from Division 2 in 2017. And Savile won Division 2 that year.
There you go.
That's right.
Yeah. And we're up in Division 1 in 2018.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
2 years ago.
Pat Haven's not playing Conor at the minute, he's I think he's carrying an injury and is probably being protected to play intermediate championship football. But how obviously you're going in with your key man injured, and your game plan probably evolves around Pat a huge deal. So can you read into Saville's results or?
Well, it's again everything's a guess at this moment. As Budge said, we are just surmising that if we take it on face value, you would have thought that to lose Pat Haven and for him not to be leading the forward line is an enormous loss for Sal. The wee lad Dean Rice, who I would have had with the under-20s for a couple of years, who's very tidy, lovely footballer.
Mm-hmm.
But Pat Haven is a big, strapping man, demands the ball, wants the ball. If he's your go-to guy and he's not playing, it is going to have a massively negative effect on the team. I would have thought. They kicked 5-13 against Tullalish in the first day out, and they drew with Finn the next day out. And then they were absolutely chinned by Shamrocks. So when you're starting to look at it, you're going, are they holding their powder a little bit drier and just saying, look, let's get all our ducks in a row, make sure everybody's fit and well and healthy. As Budgie says, it's always nice to get a couple of decent results, to go in with a feel-good factor. You can't just flick it on like a light switch. It just doesn't happen unless you put the graft in and you're working hard. If it's only one player, yes, Pat Haven will make a substantial difference to the team. But if it's more than one, well then you could have a few issues.
A player like that on a team that's playing in Division 3, would make even more of a difference. If it's Division 1 or Division 2, a bit of a difference. Division 3 would make even more of a difference, really.
When did Pat get injured?
I think I don't know. I don't know if he played the Tullalish game. I never got word, but I just know that he wasn't playing against Augusta Finn because of an injury. It could have been that he was playing against Tullalish because they were scoring.
They kicked 5-13.
Well, Killy Rice is back as well, so he's a massive player as well for them. But Cahill O'Gorman, Conor scored 1-9.
Cahill, lovely kid, great lad.
Do you know how much of a talent is Cahill then?
Cahill is listen, again, when you coach these lads for a couple of years and whatever else, you get to know them. Very, very smart lad. He's a very, very intelligent young fella. But as honest as the day is long. If you ask him to run up and down that pitch all day long, he will run up and down that pitch. But there's more to his game than that. He has a lovely left peg on him. Can see a good pass. Very, very. I think he's a quality footballer. He genuinely is. Good head on him and just a good lad. I had to go over to Jack McGee's wake the other day or yesterday. Who would be John McEntee's grandfather. So John was telling me that basically the reason Shamrocks are doing so well is because John's playing. He told me that it was important that I put that information out there, that he's doing really well, and that Paddy Tally probably should be looking at him at this stage because he's flying. Now, I don't know if he's taking the mickey or not, but I'm just putting forward the information. No, Cal's. Look, I think we all sit back and wonder what the hell is wrong in Shamrocks. Why? But this isn't a new phenomenon. You always expect more from Shamrocks. You think with the numbers and the potential fellas that they have around the place, they should be punching way above that. But this last couple of years, I think it's settled down a little bit, and there seems to be there's a few kids starting to filter through as well, so that'll help in no end. But they're doing well. They're throwing out good results, so they probably fancy their chances a wee bit this year.
Yeah, they got the final last year, Budgie, obviously, of the intermediate. Probably just one game too far for them, but they pushed Glen all the way that day. I see that Conor Goff and Conor Goff are back as well. Two massive men in the middle of the park for them. So Martin Rafferty and Gavin Murphy doing tremendous work up there.
Yeah, they're a similar profile of a team actually to Rostrevor. We would have played against them in Division 2, and their senior team and our senior team were roughly the same age at underage level, and played in a lot of finals against each other. Rostrevor actually beat them in the county minor final in 15.
Yeah.
Right, and those two teams progressed. Then, as I mentioned before, in 17 we were in Division 2, and they were also there, and gave us a couple of tough games. And I think they still have the bones of that team now. And they were a good team then. Danny Hughes has managed them actually, and they got relegated. Very, very unlucky to get relegated. I think they finished with 18 points, and actually got relegated on goal difference or something like that.
Jesus.
And there was potential of doing something there. I remember we played them. It was 3-18 to 3-17 or something. We beat them. That type of game.
Yeah,
they're really good attacking team.
A good defensive setup then. Yeah.
that was Wallow managing us.
He must have left that day. He must have been on holidays that day.
So those guys were all only 19, 20 at that age. So they're now 22, 23, 24. But what I found as well, you have to, and Shamrock's probably, they were that sort of club. They were Division 1 and Division 2 for a long time. And you have to accept almost where you are in order to improve from there. If you're sitting in Division 3 thinking, "Oh, we're a Division 2 team," you're not going to do anything.
You're not a
Division 2.
You are what you are. Yep.
You have to accept we're Division 3 and the teams around us are equal to us, and we have to give them the respect. Because what happens is you're going out and you're playing somebody that in your head, isn't as good as you, and the next thing they're giving you a game. We know well about it, Figgy. And the next thing you're in a game and getting beat, and it's just tumbleweed. It just keeps blowing away from you the whole season, and season can merge one after the other. You have to get to the point where you accept where you are and build from there. Lose all that, where you think we're better.
Any notions of grandeur have to be removed.
Absolutely, you have to come to that, and then you improve from there.
There's good wins for Tullish and Clonabana as well. I think that was Tullish's first win. Clonabana, you never know what you're going to get in, and especially Augustine, I think was travelling to Banbridge as well. So it's a hard place to go whenever you're only a new promoted team up in Division 3. Tullish, that relegation from Division 2 would have hurt them last year. So, again, another team that's going to be trying to build for intermediate men.
And the facilities they have, like Tullish are a team just waiting to explode in that respect. They just need then to get everybody, the players and coaches and all the way in that, because the facilities they have is second to none.
Well, hopefully now that I think that is their first win. Ronnie probably getting a few injuries back and looking to give this championship a good run. Division 3 then, we have wins for Leitrim. A late goal for Leitrim to win this one. I thought, I think there was a couple of changes. The key men were maybe rested and then had to come on.
Well, there was a couple of suspensions as well, John, I think, going into that game.
For Leitrim?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Well, Paddy Hardy, obviously, I would know Paddy well through the 20s, and obviously I would have been chatting with him, so they had a few boys carrying injuries as well, things like that. So, but in fairness to Paddy, he actually said it was going to be before he went up, he actually said it was going to be a tough encounter. Leitrim have some very good footballers. And really, they're set in Division 3. I think they've described that they're angry they're in Division 3. I think they feel they shouldn't be there. And come back to Budgie's point, I think they know they're there, and they know they're there for their and it's their fault for being there. To go up, they went away and played Drumgaff and kicked 2-18. Went up to Adicall at home, kicked 2-17. You have good players there. Give them a crickets, any amount of them. But like, if Conor McCrickard is a gem of a lad to coach, to be involved with, but as a footballer, does things in the pitch that, honest to Christ, I've never seen before. I mean, he's just he really is superb on the ball. but his thought processes. And Rory McCricket, a big cousin, phenomenally strong, powerful man. Normally play midfielder at 6. He can play. Tremendously strong man. You have Liam Doyle still knocking about. He's just like, he's the Pied Piper. He's the father figure of them all, and they what a player he was. What a brain, what a his use of the ball, superb player. We had a couple of lads this year with Conor McNulty and with Frankie. We had so many. Liam Middleton, tremendously, honest player, field and work all day. Like they have a litany of good players. Leitrim, there is something very, very potentially very, very, very good there.
Well, with that list of teams that have played under 20 football as well, like it's scary to think, a couple of bad results and you find yourself in Division 3 as Leitrim have. But this year a real goal for them is to really be a contender for the intermediate, and I'm sure that they've had team meetings and out there about it, that this is the year. There's no relegation, no promotion, so they have to just go for the intermediate.
And the guys are that age now. That's that good minor team that they had. They're now on the 20s. Right. Some of them are a little older as well. There's some good players there. And in a way, it might suit them, Faggy, that for there to be no pressure on promotion this year. Mm-hmm. It might suit them because they're playing freely at the minute by the look of it, based on the results in Division 3, and can go for the intermediate. And they will give it a good. They've been knocking around the intermediate finals for a number of years now. They will give it a good rattle, even when Husky was there for a few years.
Yeah, I think he's played them in the semi-final, was it?
We played in the semi-final. They beat us earlier on in the year.
That's right.
Beat us earlier on in the competition. Mm-hmm. And we came back and beat them then in the semi-final. Mm-hmm. And then the next year they were beaten final by Breda, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed.
Yeah.
So, and that's only 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they've matured. The players, they're probably a better team than that team 2 years back. With the players, as you say, they've matured, and the young fellas coming through. You Pierce Hope McCricket, for God's sake, he's as talented a lad, and he seems to.
He's a veteran now.
I must be 20. He's about 23, I think, isn't he? Maybe pushing 24. Jesus, Budgie, you could be his daddy.
Doyle.
I could be his grandfather now.
Liam Doyle won the Hogan in '98. Was the Coleman? He was only a sixth year at the time, not a seventh year. Mm-hmm. He was only a sixth year. But even on that team, which was a really good team, he was a Rolls Royce player in that team.
Oh, what a player!
He was a Rolls Royce player.
I don't think Liam's back yet, but I'm sure if things get tight around the championship time, there could be a little phone call maybe.
Yeah, no doubt.
Saying nothing.
I'm looking at your face there to see.
I know you are. I'm saying nothing.
Man, Ballymorton, Mourne Derby against Adicall. Comfortable enough victory for Ballymorton. Christopher Burden seems to be getting it a wee bit tough in Adicall at the minute, but by all accounts, Adicall were flying before the lockdown. It just seems to have gone the opposite way now. The Christopher was probably thinking that the season was going to go. Ballymorton welcome back Peter Fitzpatrick to the midfield, and Daniel Sloan was very impressive for Adicall by all measures, and a young forward as well for Ballymorton, Paul Quinn, Conor Deegan.
I know, yeah, Paul. Yeah. Paul was up last year. He had picked up a hamstring injury, which didn't help, and the under-20s season last year was so truncated. It was such a narrow window. Mm-hmm. If you were going to miss 4, 5, 6 weeks of training, you just were going to be out of the equation, really. Daniel Sloan, one talented lad. Unfortunately, his head's up his backside at the moment, but he is a talented lad. I'll say it as it is. He is very talented. Has all the ability in the world. All the ability. We've had him. He didn't even make it last year. Had him the year before. But what an ability he has. But the thing about there's Ballymorton, the chin by Drumgath, and then went out and destroyed. Leitrim destroyed Drumgath. Ballymorton were chinned by Drumgath, and then Ballymorton go out and hammer Adicall. Mm-hmm. So again, coming back
we're saying about the main players coming back. Peter Fitzpatrick obviously must be, he's a massive player for for Ballymorton as well, and his leadership qualities no doubt helped.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, there's Paul Quinn, there's Rory Quinn, a wee lad. He was there. He's played full forward. He's up with Queens as well. Pressures, big lad, has plenty. He's a good footballer too. You know, Ballymorton always produce good footballers and always have, and there's a toughness about them as well. There's no two ways about that. So, no, you saw play them, don't they? Championship. That'll be easy then.
Who?
You should win that, all right.
They're winning. Ballymorton are back. Ballymorton are back. They're winning. Budgie, Division 3. Then you see the teams there that you're naming Leitrim, Ballymorton, Drumgaff. Drumgaff play a great brand of football, great forwards. You've Shamrocks, you've Saville, Tullyleash, Clanabana. Like, Division 3 now, it really is, cutthroat, isn't it? And it's, maybe with the no promotion relegation again, boys getting used to that level of football.
But again, you're talking teams there that were always Division 2 teams. Mm-hmm. They were always, and now they're this year Division 3. So something's happened. Somebody's replacing them in Division 2 and in Division 1. Some of them teams, Leitrim were Division 1 team for ages.
Yeah.
Saville, Shamrocks, and if they weren't 1, they were 2. So it's an unbelievably strong league in terms of clubs. And looking at the clubs, like we've mentioned, that a lot of them do seem to have got their house in order. Mm-hmm. Leitrim definitely. Shamrocks look as if they've got their house in order there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tullyleash, big setup. Clanabana are always decent. Always tough team. There's a lot of good, strong teams there. So Division 3, it's very. You're not calling Division 3, but a lot of those teams are playing intermediate championship, obviously.
Yeah.
And they will contend. Like Leitrim, without question, will contend, and probably nearly Shamrocks as well.
Do you think kind of this year more than any other, there is 3 divisions now? It's either you're in the senior championship, intermediate, or junior. Like, there's no real difference between Division 3 and Division 2. The top end of Division 3 could quite easily set into Division 2.
And you'd probably say, bottom end Division 1 and top end Division 2. Very, I suppose that's the very nature of the leagues, John. That's, relegation. There's 2 teams will go down, not this year, obviously, but normally 2 will go down, 2 will come up. So, when you look at them, at the leagues or championships, that, bar the 1 or 2 really top of the top teams, the rest are very, very, very close in any league, really. It'll be, to be honest, I think it's such an unusual year. What you says, we're not really sure about who's playing, whatever, but it's the fact being we've had no football now, and we all, we're all fully aware of the difficulties and the dangers and everything that's associated at the moment, and it has been tough on so many people. The football have been the one thing that people really were looking forward to and getting it back, and now it's back. People are actually enjoying it. The one thing I've been to, not that many, because I'm very aware of the restrictions that are on us. But people are so happy to be at football matches again. There's a joy standing there, and they're not fighting on the sideline. They're not shouting at each other, or there's good banter. Now that could all change very, very quickly.
Well, you must have been at too many games this weekend, because
no. Let up.
I tell you what, I certainly wasn't up at the Downpatrick and
yes,
the Anna Clone game.
Well, just
I'm talking about the sidelines. I'm not talking about on the field of play.
You see, what's happening now is it's coming close to the championship now, and then the managers and the players are just it's cranking up. Division 2 then. Glen had a good win against Dara Cross. Glen top of that league, Division 2A, and then Division 2B. Downpatrick had a good win against Anna Clone. St John's and Enrique, it was a draw, last minute free kick from John Clark to salvage a draw there for Enrique, or for St John's, sorry. Obviously Division 2 had been hit with COVID cases this week, man. But I think most of the clubs have resumed, and I wish August the Fin, as we're going out now that they've had to postpone activities. So look, it's going to happen, and you know the JA protocols are there to adhere to. So fingers crossed, everyone gets through it. But as you said, Glen, Budgie, they've got Shane McCartan back for a wee while, you know, and he's making a different staff forward line.
Yeah, like obviously we haven't got to see Shane much playing football since he was a minor. I recollect that game against Armagh when himself and Keelan Mooney were in the down minor team against. He scored 5 goals and still lost. Yeah, somehow. But he got a hat-trick that day. I think that's one of the last years he played, really a full season. So I'm wondering, is there a chance he could get a call up from Paddy for the championship for a short time? But Glen are a good side without him. Yeah. When Glen have a full team, the problem Glen had was they had a great team, but they just didn't have the strength and depth. And then they lost a few players to, you know, foreign lands or wherever they were going to, and they didn't have their replacements. So the same, like all the other teams, all those people are back this year, and Glen full team. Glen are Division 1 team when they're going full strength. You know, but which proved last year they won the intermediate. Was last year, the year before them.
Yeah, last year they won it.
Last year they won the intermediate. You know, so they're up in the seniors this year. But the heavyweights in there, as you would think them in Division 2, St Patrick and the Stone, look to be in good nick. Yeah. Certainly Longstone have turned, you know, who I had worries that they were going down the leagues. They've turned it. Benny coming in there definitely has rejuvenated the whole club. And they look in good nick. They really do. You know, they trimmed Castlewellan before Castlewellan got hit with the COVID. You know, which was a big result there.
Well, I was talking to a couple of players from Stone, and they're very impressed with Benny, his organisational and his coaching ability. Conor, obviously you've had him with the under-20s. You know, he really has galvanised the Stone.
Look, Longstone, again, there's a few players that I would have come across over the last several years, and Longstone and Benny, it's a very good marriage. Benny's very good, I have to say. He came in this year, brilliant. And the great thing is the kids look up, the young players, they look up to him so much. You know, he's, as I tell them, they remember him. It's their parents remember me. That's the problem. Benny was brilliant as coaching.
Even I remember you, Conor.
You're nearly as old as me. No, we'll not go there, Budge. Now, behave yourself. I must have played against you in some stage. The thing about them is that, you know, Benny, you know, that guy talking to the forwards about movement, about, you know, how to shoot, placing the ball. I mean, you just stand back and you listen to it. It's brilliant to hear. And I'm sure the Longstone lads are just lapping this up. You know, the likes of Finn McElroy, Finn had a bad, did his knee. He's on the way back. Quality football. Gav McDowell plays number 6. I'm tough as nails now. Can play.
He's actually changed a couple of positions. Ronan Harrison, you had CD at under 20. He's playing 6 now. Seen on a couple of games. Finn's back, you know, it is going well for him.
Yeah, but he's turned a corner. Budge says, I mean, Benny, he's come in, he's turned a corner for him. It's superb, you know. Glen are a hell of a side. You know, and I was at Downpatrick. We played Glen up in Downpatrick, and Jesus, they give us an awful roasting that night. No, it was based on like Ronan and the 2 Miller lads, which were outstanding. It's only we've seen that night, just seen how good and their honesty and their work rate. You know, you've also the likes of Jack McCartan has jumped on there. Jack is, I think he's with the senior squad. Jack, I've had him through the underage, and he, again, great kid, very open, very honest. Jesus, he's quick. Paddy Brooks, I think Paddy's done his ankle, but you know, a young lad who's coming through again. Paddy Legs, as he's referred to by our fellow when he took him out running. Our Gregory couldn't believe it. He says, "Jesus, where did he get them? And he's only 18." But so Glen, there's a lot going on in Division 2, and as Budgie said, there's a lot of teams there that in the past, they've been largely, they've been Division 1 sides for a very long time. So again, it's a bit like you go down to Division 3, a lot of Division 2 sides. So there's a build coming again.
Obviously, Budgie, you played in Patrick in the championship, and I'm sure you look at their results to see how they're doing and what player you could be
playing really badly, Budge, really, really bad,
and who you could be possibly marking and that. But how do you sum up then, Patrick? That the results you've seen so far.
Tell me it all, Budgie. Come on, tell me everything. Come on.
All I've seen is how the results have gone, and they look as if they're in decent nick. Annaclone, they went to Annaclone, a tough place to go to, as we all know, and came out in a good side of a big win there. That was very impressive to me. That's sort of, I wouldn't say it worried me, but it just, the first couple of results, it was, then that one I was like, right, okay.
I was with 13. I was 13 men as well, I think.
We're in for one here. We're in for one. But us and the Paddy, we played them a number of times in the last few years in the championship. Yeah. And there's nothing. We know there's nothing between it.
There's very little between the two.
There's very little between the two teams. So 1 year goes for us, 1 year went for them. So we know what they're expecting. We know what they're expecting in Paddy. They're probably, I would still say they're probably still a bigger team than us. Which traditionally we have struggled against physically strong teams, whereas we maybe had the edge in terms of mobility and movement. Castlewellan's a bit of a tighter pitch in my eyes, and it will suit. I think it'll suit Patrick more than it will suit us. We played them twice there in championship in the last few years, and they beat us both times. Whereas when we got them at a bigger pitch, we were able to take them. So I'd say that's favouring them. No doubt about
it. well played, Budgie. You've convinced me.
There's some digging going on there, I can tell you.
Then Patrick are getting numbers out again. Kevin and Eddie have, they're getting good numbers. They're getting a feel-good factor around the squad. And I suppose it's a sleeping giant in terms of where Patrick should be. I think
sleeping. It's comatose and has been for 25 years. It's in a coma.
How do you feel the season, and what's going to be a good season for Patrick this year?
I think I went up and I watched the match against St. John's, and the thing about them is there's a few youngsters starting to kick on through, and I think that's the certainly a strong positive again. You have Nico's there, Nathan, but he'd sort of gone AWOL for a year, but Nathan's a good player. Ronan Murphy's there. We lad Owen Rooney. Good wee player, tough, tight.
Budgie's writing this down as you speak, but
no, he can write all he wants. He's playing the opposite end of the pitch as you, Budge. But they still have the old. They still have the old. They have the warhorse, Scoop Peter. And Peter's going quite well, and then still an awful lot comes off Peter. That's the one thing about him. Damien Turley's there. McGrady actually played very well against Johnny. Scored a really good goal. Mm-hmm. Really good goal. Really caught a fantastically high ball on the edge of the square and buried it.
Conor has that in his locker as well. CD, he does. He has all the attributes of a top quality footballer.
He's a physical. He's a big, strong young fellow. He's got pace. On his game. He is a handful. Depending on the ball coming in, things of that nature. But look, Paddock are going okay. It's the one thing, as you said. There's numbers back now. After having no football for 5 months, you'd be shocked if there wasn't a few numbers and boys were gagging to get back playing a wee bit and be involved again. So it's what's a good year? I suppose at this stage it's winning a few games and nobody down from COVID would be a great year. Or nobody getting really sick from it. But it's definitely a building progress at the moment, and they're doing okay. I have to say that I think, as Budgie said, that result away from home, you know, and you don't get carried away, and you're thinking you should be going and beating teams like that, but you know, it was the physicality of it, and Downpatrick stood up to that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe stood up to it a wee bit too much, insofar as there was 2 sent off. You know,
That's
but
right.
you know, sometimes you need things like that to happen to really ignite things. So.
No, I'm really looking forward to that match tonight in Patrick against Rostrevor. So it'll be interesting to see what way both teams set up. The Clark Derby then, with obviously Marty Clark and John. They were entertaining and raked. St John's, as I said, got a late free from John. And Rick were leading all the way through this, I do believe, and St John's sort of pegged them back. I think there was, you know, a couple of rows erupted, and you know, I think the referee had to play 6-7 minutes at a time, which allowed then, you know, St John's to get a foothold in the game. And Rick will be playing intermediate this year. They're the highest ranked team in intermediate. So St John's and Rick, Budgie, like, how did you think that this was always going to be a tight affair?
Yeah, St John's have been a solid team for the past 8 years. A solid Division 2 team. They've threatened a few times to get promoted Division 1. They've also threatened a few times to get relegated Division 3. And they seem to just be in that band in the middle of Division 2 where for quite a period of time. Now, in terms of Unrick, we played Unrick a month ago in a challenge match. I was really impressed with them. Really impressed them. They were the only team I've seen, even in the league match so far, that actually played the mark. They played to the mark, and it wasn't the high ball. It wasn't the high ball into the square. It was a 25-yard, 30-yard dink pass from Chris Killen in centre half forward. He was getting it, and he was just dinking it to the corner man and the full forward, calling the marks well within scoring range. And they were the first team. They played it really, really well. I got my eyes open, and that was our first challenge match. They had played a few, so they had obviously been working on it a lot. I don't know how that has progressed for them, whether they've been able to continue that. I had my doubts at the time. I was thinking in my head, when the league starts and the championship starts, they're not going to get away with that type of football. I didn't think.
It's a high risk, isn't it? Like if your game plan is just to play on the marks and you're getting tightly marked.
Yeah, to me, when defenders were going to get up to speed, after playing a few games, all they needed to do was get a fist in, and their whole game plan was down the drain. Really. Now, I'm not saying that was their only game plan, but just that game plan in particular wasn't going to work. I didn't think, and I haven't seen it in any other games since. None of the teams that we've played have been able to do that because defenders are tighter. They're getting in, they're getting the ball away, and it's not working like that. But I was still very impressed with them, and they look to have good squad of players. They had their old players were still there and were fighting hard. They had players that were previously injured. Ronan McLennan had a bad injury a few years ago, didn't he? He was back.
He was back,
and the lot of younger players as well. So I thought they would have given it a good year now. I thought they'll give the good intermediate a good year. Not sure if they'll win it. I don't think they're at the quality. I think even the likes of some of those other teams, Leitrim could be stronger in intermediate championship. But you know they're certainly a decent, good mid Division 2 team, which backs up with a draw against St John's, because that's what St John's are. Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah, it was. City, as you were at the Downpatrick St John's game, and obviously unraked. You know, St John's have a certain style of football. They like the counter attack and break it at pace with I think it's Conor Morgan and Marty Keenan and
Marty
more
Keenan
up front. Yeah.
Marty Keenan, I think, was playing at 14. He so much came off him. I mean, he was working, but the problem was that they were playing on Downpatrick's bottom pitch, i.e. the one beside the clubhouse, and it's just a monster. I mean, for me, Johnny's their 10 just drifted straight back to give cover. Sure, Jesus, by the time Downpatrick got the ball down and kicked it, it's about 4 kicks before you get over halfway line. You know, there's an awful lot of work. It's a massive bloody pitch.
Yeah.
And he was away, and he left the whole left side up. And every time Downpatrick were able just to ping the ball, and James was kicking at the scoop, and eventually it came over to the left wing, and the wee lad had it all day, and he could have sold it up there walking, and there was nobody within 50 yards of him.
Mm-hmm.
So they were inviting the play on all the time, and the counter attack is wonderful. But Jesus, to get from that end of the pitch to the far end of the pitch, the amount of work that they were having to do, I think it took its toll on them. They really started running out of legs. Like there was a couple of balls that were running towards the sideline, and you could hear them shouting, let it go. It's going to make. It didn't. It wasn't within 10 meters of the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
I swear it was. We were standing above watching down, and boys were shouting and literally shouted, "Let the sideline or let it go over the sideline." It stopped. We lad run over and picked it up. I mean, the pitch was just too big for them, and to play that counter-attacking style of football, you have to be extremely fit, and I mean everybody, not just 2 or 3 fellas, which is what they were depending on. And there was an incident during the pitch where somebody got asked to leave the pitch for a short while, and he was replaced, and he shouldn't have been. He got a black card, and he was off for 10 minutes. But they happened to make a sub.
Don't tell me who the ref was.
that's the brother.
No, it's okay. It was Brent. It was Brendan. It was Brendan. Brendan Rice.
Rice will have to reply now. Rice will have to reply now.
I have to say, and he's 100% right. I spoke to Brendan after the game, and he's right. And I shouted, I says, "You made some fault to that," and he laughed. He says, "You need eyes in the back." I says, "Brendan, the referee doesn't have a chance. Mm-hmm. Genuinely has no chance in it. How in the name of God is he meant to do all these things?" Brendan took it very well, and well, he had no choice. But,
at least he corrected it.
Well, put it like this: it was, it's one of the anomalies of our game, But going back to that, you talk about the rules. I mean, you're talking about the likes of the inside mark. I think that there's so many. Sorry, I don't know what's going on there. I thought that so many teams we're not used to the rule itself, and with that rule, and you're not used to it, teams tend not to do it. You forget almost. Yeah. You can actually see fellas they're calling for a mark, and it almost surprises them when they shout for the mark, because it's only then they've realised they can take this. I think it's a rule that shouldn't be there, but it is what it is. But again, there's another rule that the referee has to be on top of. It's now impossible to referee a game, genuinely. I'll defend Brendan on this one. Absolutely. Jesus, 100%. I will defend Brendan on that one. You haven't a chance.
It's not like you. But
I'm rolling backwards.
Boys, what about intermediate then? Potential winners then.
Look, again, a wee bit like Bo, I have a great soft spot. I think if Leitrim can get it right, and the players can keep their discipline and really structure themselves, and I think that they have enough. I think that there's some very fine players there, and I really do think if they get it right and they can keep their discipline, they'll be fine. I think Leitrim could do it. Yeah, Paddy won't thank me for that, but no, there you go.
Brilliant. Okay, man, we'll just go into the last segment then of the reviews on its Division 1A, Warren Point beating neighbours Rostrevor.
They didn't beat them, they hammered them, did they not?
Just being nice. Kilcoo,
okay, sorry.
Kilcoo beat Bransford in the Jerome Quinn stream game. Division 1B then, Burn beat Carryduff, and Mayorbridge beat Ballyholland. Loughlin Island and Clonduff were playing in the friendly game. They're Loughlin Island winning. Budgie, I suppose the form, the teams that you thought would have won on Friday night in Division 1 A and B won, so there was no real surprises. With playing the senior championship now, like teams, as you said, they're not going to show their full hand, are they?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as that. I wouldn't say you're not showing your full hand. Like teams are, I know we had our strongest team out, and Warren Point had their strongest team out. Mm-hmm. Now our strongest team mightn't be the team that we'll have against Empatha because we're missing a couple of players. Obviously, Keelan Mooney's a massive miss. Pierce Kane was missing as well.
Yeah, huge. Yeah.
So against the likes of Warrenpoint, and I rate Warrenpoint really highly. To me, they're at that stage and they're all the right age. They need to be winning a championship soon. Mm-hmm. They're one of the teams. To me, there's Warrenpoint, Kilcoo, and Bourne are the top 3 teams. And for any team, including ourselves, to compete with them, you need to be playing with a full hand and at your best. Whereas every time I've played Warrenpoint this past few years, they've just been the same every time I've seen them playing. Mm-hmm. They've played the same way. The same players involved. They all know what they're going to do. It's not overly defensive. It's not all out attack. It's good balance. And they're just red. They're gearing to win a championship. That's what they're gearing for. If they don't do it, the boys are now hitting their 30s, and the younger players are all mid-20s. So I'm really impressed. I was really impressed the other night with them, even though they probably didn't play that well.
Yeah.
It was just that system they're playing. Every time we've played in the last 3 years, it's the same thing.
It's their change of speed.
Over and over and over.
It's probably their change of speed whenever they can slow it down and then inject a bit of pace into the forward line. They're just sort of probing at the start and then...
It's like Conor said there about relying on 2 or 3 players to get you up the field. They don't rely on 2 or 3. They rely on 10 players. Mm-hmm. Now, they're not all coming at once, but it could be it's just a different player coming every time. And when you're up against that, the likes of ourselves, we have the capacity to do that as well, but we need to have our full strength team out and playing at their damned best to compete against that. The same against Kilcoo and the same against Bourne, and probably Carryduff now would be one of the strong teams as well. To compete against that, which all Division 1 teams and the best Division 2 teams, they're all decent level. Downpatrick at full strength is a good side. Mm-hmm. Longstone at full strength is a good side. Bransford at full strength now with Poacher there. So all these teams, there's no question about it. Every team fancies themselves. Yeah. In the short season that we're going to have, every team fancies themselves. But they're definitely Warrenpoint are one of the ones to beat. No question about that.
I suppose Kilcoo beating Bransford, there's no real surprise in Kilcoo beating Bransford, but the game, I'm sure you sort of look at it yourselves as well. Mark Reid scoring a wonder point for Bransford, but Stevie has steadied the ship there. He's made them hard to beat, and the push Kilcoo, but Kilcoo, a couple of boys not playing, seem to be rested for bigger things as well. So I suppose 2 different teams on 2 different spectrums. Just Bransford, just no promotion relegation, trying to get a system of play now that suits them, and Kilcoo now just gearing up for a championship.
Yeah, that's it. Well done. That's it covered, John. Thanks.
You had an easy one there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else you're gonna. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Kilcoo will do what Kilcoo will have to do at the moment, and they're doing enough. I mean, they beat the point. It's amazing. Kilcoo will always look at the likes of, as Budgie says. I mean, you go into the likes of Warrenpoint or potential threat, and you watch. If you look at the games, Kilcoo will look to keep beating teams that they know are a threat, just to keep that psychological thing nearly going as much as anything else. They went out against the point, beat the point by 3 points. That's just keeping that little marker down there. They won't ease up on games like that. The likes of Bransford doesn't worry them as much because they don't see Bransford at the moment, and I don't believe Bransford are championship contenders. So Kilcoo will go through the motions a wee bit more there and maybe give boys a bit of a run out. Look, Kilcoo did with the Mark Reid's point was class. The bigger issue was he had nobody to give the ball to. That is a slight, that has to be a slight concern that there was nobody showing. There was plenty of boys running, but they were running their own bloody way. Didn't demand. But like he struck it off the outside of his right foot. Like it wasn't, he wasn't hooking it in. He pinged that.
Maybe doing midfield last year helped him with the.
Well, I know Mark again, great lad. you know, what a kick out he has potentially. You know, it's a real weapon if it's used properly. His dead ball kicking is superb. You know, he kicks a ball, I don't know, 55, 60 meters, 70, 65 meters, fairly comfortably, accurately, and at a head height almost. It's a real weapon. But Bransford had a rough year last year. You know, they're consolidating a wee bit. You know, Stevie will have them playing the complete opposite of what they're used to playing. And Bransford, well, you know, Bransford's football was always quick moving and you know, it was getting the ball forward and moving the ball at pace, whether by hand or by boot. You know, so it is definitely going to be it takes a hell of a buy-in from every single player for that to really blend, you know, to blend in. But you know, it's they're not being overrun, and that's you know, that again, it's a step in the right direction. You have to start building confidence. If you're not being destroyed by teams, it's all small steps at the moment for some clubs.
Well, I suppose whenever you're looking at Kilcoo as the benchmark, and then this year they have Darragh Hanlon back and Kenny Doherty as well. So, you know, like, and then the minors coming through that won the minor championship recently.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're talking there about Corofin earlier. Yeah, that's what Kilcoo are looking to do. They're looking to replicate that, what Cross Glen have done, what Corofin have done. They're no question are looking to replicate that. And they're close to doing it. You know, the setup in the club and the structures is unreal. You know, you don't hear any old tales coming out of Kilcoo about this happened or that happened, the other happened. All you hear is the hard work that's going on. That's all you hear. And the players that are finishing, you know, and even still playing, going back in and doing the work in the club. And that's a big part of it.
As a club, it's a club ethos, Budgie. You know, it's you know, they have built a dynasty in a very, very short space of time in real terms. It's taken other clubs many, many, many years. They've done it over many years now, but you know, they've
done it in 20 years, really.
20 years. It's quite incredible. You think about it, it's a tremendous achievement.
Well, I suppose the Division B, then you have Burn, who are the one of the probably, you know, third.
Clonduff, we bypass. What about the likes of Clonduff?
Clonduff and Lough Island have they had their friendly match. So they had.
Well, just when we're talking about teams, you know, we've talked about the Point, we've talked about you know, Kilcoo, Carryduff, Clonduff have. There's a lot of good kids coming through there now as well. I think they're a team that over the next year or two could be worth watching.
No, definitely.
To me, those two you mentioned two teams there, Faggy, Lough Island and Clonduff. Yeah. To me, those two teams are probably the biggest underachieving teams in the past number of years. I think Lough Island were a fantastic team. You know,
Rostrevor got a tough there last year, budget.
Should have been threatening for a senior championship, but haven't featured at all. You know, and Clonduff, we all know they should have been threatening. Like, the players they have is unreal. But it looks to be a new team now. It looks to be a new team now compared to what it was 2 years ago, 3 years. It's definitely a new team, so it'll be interesting to see how they go.
Ryan Brannigan's, I know he plays hurling up there, Budgie, as well, but he adds something different to Clonduff whenever he plays. You know, either midfield or full forward. He's always popping up with you know, scores and links to play very well. You know, whenever you're adding Barry O'Hagan and Arthur, Stephen McConville as well, like, it is. And then you got Darn obviously leading from the back, like, you know, there's no reason why. And the cars as well, like, it's,
you know, quality players there.
It definitely
is. Is Darn available? Is he the hamstring injury, or is he?
I haven't heard yet what the story is. Yeah. But Burn obviously are one of the favourites, men, and Cardiff probably testing the water, maybe just about Division 1 and how far, you know, they could possibly. They're looking to establish themselves in Division 1 with no relegation this year. That's a massive boost for Cardiff as well.
Cardiff have a hell of a panel and have an awful lot of good players. It's probably taken them longer to get to this place now than it maybe should have taken. But they're also quite a young squad. They're a very young squad.
Yeah.
So Jesus, my 3 years, there must be a dozen that I would have seen, or close to it. Jeez, there could well be. You know,
The
you're
other
going to look at
accounts, Ronan Beatty played
Beatty.
very well in this, yes. And Liam Kerr were the standout players in this game. Conor, two boys I'm sure you know well.
But Beatty's, you know, up front, full forward, potentially out in front, wins the ball. Liam Kerr is just Liam Kerr. I mean, Liam on his day is absolutely scintillating to watch. You know, he really is. He's a special talent. He has tremendous ability. He doesn't always get the best out of himself. You know, there's things he could add to his game a little bit more subtly instead of just trying to run around everybody. But when he gets the ball, there's a buzz. People expect, which is great, you know, and that's always good for any supporter watching the game is going to listen to them. But you know, you go to Carryduff, you're looking at Jesus, you have the James and Daniel Guinness will come out, John McGeough, Lorgan Toll, you know, Ronan Beatty. You have 3 keepers who have all been through the county: Mark Hines, Tommy Connery, and Darren Ross. All have played either senior or 21 or minor. You have Josh Connery. You know, you have so many good players that are floating about there. They're a bit like I would suggest a wee bit like how Kilmacud would have been viewed back in the day. Would have been Kilmacud would have been seen as south side softies. That's the perception. They weren't, but that's, you know, there was a south side team, plenty of, there was the facilities, blah blah blah, and allegedly money and all that guff. Carryduff are nearly viewed as the same. You know, they're the city slickers. Unlike the Bredo, who'd be seen as a tougher breed down the road, only, you know, a couple of miles. But it's a good time for Carryduff to really test and see where they are. You know, they kicked 2-7 against Burn. Burn kicked 14 scores. You know, they definitely they have something, and they have a lot of pace. I tell you, Carryduff have a lot of pace, and they're not small.
Yeah.
You know, and they brought in Cathal Murray.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, when you start building that up over the next 2-3 years, they really should be kicking on from here on. They potentially could be, as Budgie said, way at the very start. You know, you're talking about teams coming out of Belfast or coming out of the city. Carryduff really should be the one that now they're the ones that could really challenge at the top end.
Budgie, Carryduff aren't going away in a, you know, even in last year's championship, you could see the quality they had. But Burn just seemed to be ticking along nicely, and you know, like, is it just because you expect this of Burn that no one's really talking about them, or you know, how do you view it?
Yeah, Burn are bound to have a feeling that, which I talked there about underachieving teams. Burn are bound to have a feeling that they've underachieved because of Kilcoo. You know, 6-7 years ago, Burn won 2 championships in a row, and we're expecting to win. We're expecting to monopolise like they did in the 80s again, and they never got the chance to do it because Kilcoo took over. But they've still had really good teams every year since then, and if it wasn't for Kilcoo, they probably would have won. There's no doubt they would have won another few championships.
No doubt. Yeah.
There's no question about that. Do they have the same structures as a club as Kilcoo? They're a different club, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
They're a different club, but no less work involved, and the players are producing at underage level is absolutely phenomenal. Like they're producing better. They're probably producing better underage teams than any club. When you're talking with the likes of Carryduff, we're talking Ray Shamrocks, we're talking Kilcoo. Burn seem to win more across the board at underage than anybody, which goes back maybe to something you mentioned with Cara Finn earlier as well. And we were talking beforehand about winning at underage. Burn win across the board at every age level, and 2 teams at every age level. It's unbelievable. Yet in their team, to me, they still have a team that they had a number of years ago. You know, there's still quite a number of that team were playing 6-8 years ago. Still a number, which I wouldn't have really expected, given the underage talent they've had coming through. You're talking about underage talent that were winning Fail All Irelands and Ulster under 16s and Ulster minors. Yet they still, to me, they still have a lot of players, of experienced players. I'm not saying they shouldn't be on the team, but I'm surprised that more of the youth, more of the young ones haven't come through. They've had a sprinkling. They've had 2, 3, 4 of them, but there hasn't been a mass surge of them. Like the Carry Duff was all new. They all came through in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
That whole team.
Yeah, pretty much the same time. Yeah,
well, like Bourne have had as strong underage teams as Carry Duff had.
Oh yeah,
But they had stronger players at the top already. So it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard for a young fella coming through, as we all know. It's hard for a young fella coming through to push an experienced player, right? Because the manager will sit down and he'll still go.
It's hard to beat. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you know.
Yes.
And Jesus Christ, Budgie, you have plenty of experience.
Man, Marebridge against Ballyholland, two teams that know each other very well. Marebridge are going to be coming up against Kilcoo in the televised game on TG4. Ballyholland. Ballyholland are now an established Division 1 team, and they avoided relegation, even relegation trouble last year. So, how did Ballyholland improve, and how did Marebridge then, get into that top table again, man? Where they were in the noughties.
Well, the Ballyholland thing, I mean, I think that they do genuinely tremendous amount of work that goes on there to keep. For them not to be in relegation last year, they have an awful lot of good young fellas coming through too. They really, really, really do. And they have a wonderful mentality, pure siege mentality. And it has been built up over a few years, and it stands to them. They're awkward. They're very, very, very difficult to play against. And you know what? They do damn well. They actually do. I think Ballyholland do exceptionally well. The Bridge, every team, there's peaks and troughs. Every team is going to go through them, and the Bridge are, they're not where they were, but that's going to happen in Kilcoo at some stage. It happened Burn, it happens every team. It goes quiet for a little while, but the work is still going on. You gotta keep pushing. Mm-hmm. Demanding more and more of each player. It's you need a bit of good fortune as well, ensuring that you don't pick up any bad injuries or things like that, or bad sentence off at the wrong time where it's going to affect your team. So they got to just keep knuckling down and keep working very, very, very hard. You think the Bridge is more. You always think the Bridge could turn somebody on any given day. And I think they can. I genuinely do.
They're a different team now, Conor. The team that played against us a couple of weeks ago. They're a different team. The Marebridge that people think about, they're a different team now. They're very good and very, very athletic. I did notice that about them. Very athletic. They maybe hadn't tuned in fully yet to we scored 17 points against them.
Yeah.
We scored 7, which was a lot. Even though they probably should have been. They scored 3 goals against us that day. They looked a dangerous side, but I was one of the teams I couldn't tell you who half the players were. I just didn't recognise them. Really didn't recognise them. Even Clonduff, I sort of did. I knew who they were, but Marebridge, it was unreal. Like, talk about a young side. They've gone. That's now their team for the next 5-6 years. So it'll be interesting to see. And there was no looking at their sideline. There was definitely no stone unturned in terms of preparation and what they were at. There's no question about that.
Well, maybe that's a good thing that you get them in now and give them the experience of playing Division 1 football, and then building Kieran McKeever. They seem to have a lot of faith in Kieran getting this right, and as you said, it's a new team, Budge. So they've nothing to lose. They're nothing to lose.
No.
Going for it, man. The senior championship this year. I'll be asking your predictions, and obviously, Budgie, apart from Rostrevor, who do you think will win it? But with the shortened season and that, you know, what's if you were preparing a team, CD, what would your priority have been leading up to the championship?
Leading up to the championship.
Yeah. Now, like what tactics, fitness?
If we would have been using these games obviously as blooding players to have a real look at them, your tactics would have been. I would have thought if you were doing it, you'd have been looking. Like Kilcoo don't need to do that. It's ingrained in them. You know, there's certain. Ballyhone probably very, very similar in that regard. They play a certain way and they'll continue to do so. Like for me, if I was taking the team in, you'd be sitting going, right, I want to check your positions. You know where you're strong and you know where you're weak or weaker, and you want to be working on the weaker aspects of it to say, right, well, and for me, and I've said it to you many times, always about the what ifs, what if somebody gets a line, what if somebody's off for 10 minutes? You know, throwing me silly things in, especially in training, you know, playing a high intensity training. You'd have been looking at a lot of small sided games with real intensity to build the fitness levels, to keep the enjoyment in it. But is Pete still doing lots of big heavy runs?
So I lost you every minute to run it.
Does Pete still put you through the long run? So he's over that, or did you do a bit of that?
No, Pete's moved well with the times now. So he is.
Just ask the question. I'm not. He loves his rolling. He loves his rolling. He loves his rolling.
He loves his long training. He loves his long trainings, but
he does. In the fairness,
you know.
Budgie, who would you see now? Is it if you had to go? Didn't pick Rostrevor. Whose championship is it this year?
I think the final last year, those two teams, Kilcoo and 1 Point, are still the two toughest opponents. You know, below that, you still, Bourne are definitely there as well. Probably carried off, but to me, Point and Kilcoo, you're looking. If you're going to win a championship, you're going to have to beat those teams.
Can't add to that, John. You can't add. No, you can't really. You can make an argument and say, look, on any given day, but you know, it's hard. It's hard to argue. You know, I have a soft spot, and I do genuinely for Clondalk because of the young fellas that you know I've coached. But you know, you would need so many things to go right. Like, how can you go by them? How can you go by Kilcoo? The very first one, you know, that's the reality. I mean, they're current Ulster champions. They're you know, I'm sure they're driven heavily by overtaking.
I think the only thing that people are clinging to, Conor, was that so many of their games last year were so close. Not just in Ulster and All Ireland, but in the Down Championship, so many of them were close. And 1 Point will be thinking, we had done that. Bourne had the game won in the semi-final. You know, and that's the one thing the teams are clinging to. I think that's certainly what we're clinging to.
And you can cling all you want because the bottom line is they still got over them, and they knew how to get over that line, and that's the. And listen, Kilcoo will do whatever they have to do to ensure that they'll get over the line. Whether it's to pull somebody down the last minute, they will do whatever, and that's where some will say professionalism comes into it. You know,
and they're adding quality footballers as well. Two boys coming back from long-term injuries. So
well, no doubt about that. And you have a few of the young fellas are really kicking on now. You know, so hard to see by it.
No, definitely. So we'll not be running to the bookies anyway because I don't think you get good odds on them. But you just while I've got you on, you know, we referred to it earlier about the Corfin and the dominance that they've had and probably regarded as the greatest club team ever. And it was an interesting interview after the game, and you know, basically they said that they don't put emphasis on winning at underage. It's more about the skills and people getting game time and building people rather than just winners. You know, Rostrevor throughout the years are known for winning minor championships. You know, and every single manager that's come in has said, "You've won so many minor championships. You know, what's the problem here? What's happened?" I think it's 6 in 12 years, which that's, you know, phenomenal record at underage level. I know you're heavily involved in the committee with Rostrevor. Do you think now, looking back, that's something that should have been addressed sooner, or was it just like a runaway steam train that it brought on life on itself?
Yeah, like people used to come in and say, the underage structure in Rostrevor, and I used to think, well, what is the structure?
What is?
What is it they're talking about? What's different here than it's different elsewhere? To me, I don't think there really was anything different. You ran into what was different, possibly, is the only thing I can think of, was in the local primary school in Rostrevor. Like, football was so academic was important, but football was as important. Nearly in terms of emphasis. Any time you'd done your schoolwork, but any time there was a chance of a break, the teacher and the headmaster was, right, boys, let's go. Now, it was a boys only school. It was the last minor championship we won was 17, and they were the last team to win something in the primary school before it changed from an all boys school. And it wasn't that it amalgamated with the girls. There was a whole changeover in school buildings, and there was a long drawn out process over that. I think that's where we lost a lot. That's where we lost it. Players were coming to Rostrevor under 12, under 10s, and they were ready to go. It's like Kilcoo now, when you see them under 10 level, they're already a team. You're not trying to build a team, they're already a team, because that's what they were doing at primary school. We had that, and we had it before anybody else had it. Bourne started it 10, 15 years ago down in McYarton. Used to go in every Friday. I don't know if he still does. He went in every Friday, coached the team. That brought them back. Kilcoo with Conor Laverty. Ballyholland had Conor Deegan and Paul Shields in the school, who put a big emphasis on football. Whereas Rostrevor, I'm not saying it's Rostrevor School's fault, but things happen in Rostrevor with the school.
Did you almost
we
take
sort
it
of
for granted?
lost that. Well, you took it for granted, surely, and we lost it. We lost that, and we're trying to get it back now, but we're now 10 years behind the other teams.
Yeah, and with them players coming through though, Budgie, like Rostrevor never hit the heights then of the likes of Kilcoo that are getting them players through. What happened there then that you can think of that?
What
we never made the breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
They found they probably found, John. I think you'll probably find they found that there was drinking women.
There's drinking women everywhere, not just Rostrevor.
Well, we definitely had the opportunity in the mid zeros in 05, 06, 07 when Aidan Farrell was in as manager. That was probably the time for it to happen. Mm-hmm. And if we had won a championship then, if we won a championship with that team, it could have stuck together. That team could have stuck together. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening was we drew. Maybridge was still the dominant team. Do you remember we drew with them in Bourne? We had them beat and scored a goal in the last kick of the game, and they annihilated us in the replay. And it just ripped the guts out of that. It ripped the guts out of that team. The next year, because we had 7 players in the down 05 squad, won the All-Ireland minors. Mm-hmm. 7 players in that squad. Within 3 years or 4 years, none of them were playing. None of them. Through a number of things. Obviously, it was that time, 2007, where basically the country just went bust.
Yeah.
But also, the football, if there was one thing to keep you home, it was football. And if we had won something, won a senior championship, we won a league, but we never won the championship. Yeah. If we'd won the championship, it could have been a different story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. And that's the next thing you know, 2008, 2009, that team, that first minor team, say, was gone. They won 3 or 4 minor championships. And then the second team was coming through, but the second team didn't have the first team to build on because the first team was gone. Do you know?
Yeah.
So the second team, then you were expecting them to do it, but they didn't even have the team above them to build on.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, that's where it was lost. Yeah.
The point Budgie made there about the schools is hugely pertinent. I think that's I was heavily, as you know, in Dublin, Kilmacud had 6 primary schools on its doorstep, 6, and had coaches going in to each school.
Yeah.
Every day there was a coach, and they would have paid whatever it was. I think it was guys, maybe the likes of Darren McGee or Limog, O'Hennigan, they were in college. So they would have come up and done an afternoon. Got a few pounds in their pocket, but they would have budgeted for that at the start of the year and said, we have X number of thousands, and that's where it's going. And then you would have brought the kids down to the club, and you were that massive buy-in. Now you're talking about an area that has 120,000 people in it, so it's it was a huge area for one club, but they had 6 primary schools on your doorstep, and that was the target, and that's where they went, and that's how they changed everything. And like, they haven't won whatever, but they're still a serial. They're very hard to beat. There's a lot of good players come out of it. They were winning. They were a bit like yourselves. They won. I think they were in something like 11 out of 12 finals at minor level. So for God's sake, there were 7 senior teams at one stage because of the number of players that were starting to filter through, and that all came from come back
to the primary schools.
10 years to the primary schools, where you were just bringing these kids through hand over fist.
But you so go ahead, CD.
No, just the affinity it built with the schools. You walked in with your Kilmacud top on. That's what the kids looked at. You know, if you brought if Dublin and won All Ireland, they walked in. Darren McGee walks in, or Paul Griffin walked in with the Sam. That's how they built all this, and they're doing the exact same thing in Vincent's. They do the same in St. Bridget's. All the Ballyboden, they're the exact same, and that's how they target it. But they go in through the schools, and it's a really simple process. But you have to have some will to put it in place. You also have to back it financially, because it does take. You also need the school buy-in, which is absolutely huge. Now, if you think about it from a teacher's point of view, somebody walking in and saying, "I'm taking your kids off you for an hour." Most teachers, I would have thought, would say, "Thank the Lord, get them out for an hour." And when you speak to teachers, it's not about going and getting a coffee or anything. It was the fact they could go and get the rest of their work done, and they could get things done. So that was the buy-in came. And that's how all them clubs are doing it. I'm pretty certain if you go down to Corofin, you'll find very, very similar things going on.
Yeah.
But with the what do you call it, the the constant success then of the minor teams, do you think now looking back that there should have been a stronger link between the minors, reserve football and senior team to make sure that there was an integration of the boys, maybe sacrificing minor championships for that?
I don't think there was a huge problem there. If you think, like, thinking back to the first team that won, you had Eamon McConville, Sean Parr, those guys who are still playing now for us, right? But we lost some of them in those mid years when they would have been their strongest. But they were playing seniors. Them guys were playing seniors when they were 15. Even McConville started midfield first ever at 15. So in Division 1. So in terms of integration, it was there.
At 15?
At 15, started midfield in Division 1, yeah. So the same age he is now. And Sean Parr, something similar. And then who else was involved there? Colin Clark and Conor Mackin. All those guys, were playing seconds on senior football when they were minors. And then in the year, straight away, in the year after that, they were thrust in. And we were a good competitive team for that period of time. So I don't think there was a huge issue there with that element of needing to sacrifice a minor championship. The year we won a minor championship in 2005 is the year we won the senior league. But we lost the championship that year. Bransford scored, wasn't it Bransford knocked out that year, scored 3 goals in the first 10 minutes. The game's over.
Game over. Yeah.
There's not a whole lot you can do, no matter what players you have there. So I don't think there was a problem there. I think the problem was that we lost those players very quickly, soon after, through one thing or another. Some of them went to Margus, some of them went to Burn, some of them went to...
Jesus. I wasn't expecting that. But that's brilliant. I was waiting for Australia. Jesus, it's worse. It was Burn.
Same difference.
So, but we lost them all. they were all gone. A lot of that, those 7 players that were in the 05 minor team, they weren't playing within 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the cut. The next boys that came in, then just if those guys had still been there, you know, and building on it, and then another team coming a couple of years later, Nicky Murray and Pierce Kane, those boys building on top of Jordan Fagan, because your fella Jordan and Conor Doyle came in, but there was nobody above them, John.
Mm-hmm. No.
You know, the next man to them was Sean Power, who was 7 or 8 years older than him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so
well,
that's where the link was lost. Yeah.
Well, you know, and we all always, and we look back, a lot of us, at many different things. But I mean, the bottom line is, as long as we learn from them, like the big thing now is, if you got them, you wouldn't make the same mistakes. I don't think. You wouldn't like to think so.
No, well, sometimes you can't. Sometimes boys have to go somewhere, England or wherever to work, or Dubai. They're going to go. Like, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, there was Enrique. I think we're in a similar position to ourselves. They had very strong teams around that age, and they were wiped out with emigration completely. You know, they just that's where their team went as well.
The point you made about the financial crisis, I mean, what was that, 07, 08, sort of around 08, right through to probably today, even nearly. It's you forget about that and how far-reaching an impact that would have.
And one of the big problems for us, Conor, is in Rostrevor, the past players. Our past players just filtered every other club but our own.
That's right.
Because they can't
afford
to buy a house.
No, all right. Well,
they can't afford to buy a house from Rostrevor.
No, well,
John,
once you get this show sponsored.
But the team, say the last team that won Rostrevor, or the senior championship in Rostrevor in '98, like those players are all blown to the wind, but not that far away. But they're in Leitrim, they're in Maybridge, they're in Clonduff, they're in Bourne, and their coaching teams there, and their children are playing there. So that was a big problem for us. Only in the last 2-3 years have I seen that sort of reversion where some of the players, some of our old players are coming back. We're still not getting players from other teams living in Rostrevor, but some of our players, we're retaining more players within the village. So that'll obviously have a knock-on effect in the next few years.
No, whenever you win this year's championship, then that'll be something to build on, and then people will be queuing up to buy houses in Rostrevor. Budgie, thanks a million for jumping on tonight. I'll definitely get you on again. It's interesting to hear your points and even your analysis of the new generation coming through as well. It's funny how you said that the new teams and you didn't even recognise some. So it's it's funny how the way football's gone now, that just in 1 year a whole generation of new footballers can come in and take over.
Definitely has.
CD, thanks a million for jumping on, and your expertise is always a pleasure.
As long as I didn't insult anybody tonight.
Well, I can't promise that. You say it, I only clean up your mess afterwards. No, thank you, man. I was really enjoyed that, and hopefully in 2 weeks now we'll get the start of the championship, and all being well, we'll get this back on again, see how your prediction's done, and all the best for the future, man.
All right,
thanks,
Budgie. Look after yourself.
Take care. Talk to you, bye.